hospital. Well, for more on this, joining us is Dr. Jiro Baidara, who is from the GP Delivered Quickly service. So thank you very much indeed for being with us. First of all, tell us what we know about this disproportionate impact of the outbreak on BAME people.
Absolutely. So a recent audit of 2,000 cases in ITU showed that 35% of these were from Black, Asian and minority ethnic populations, compared to 13% of the population as a whole, which is white British. And that's a very startling statistic. It first came to my attention because clearly I was taking note of any doctor or nurse who was falling to the COVID-19 virus. And many of these seem to, again, be Black or Asian, and I could not see a reason for the disparity.
What reasons have you considered? Because it's not, for example, that people from that background, those backgrounds are more represented in frontline services. Could that be a reason?
It is. So, as I said, Black and Asian and minority ethnic communities make up 13% of the UK population, but nearly 20% of NHS workers are from those ethnicities. So doctors, nurses, laundry workers, catering staff, etc. So there's potential for more exposure to the virus. There's also socio-economic factors. So Black and Asian communities tend to live in more overcrowded housing in less affluent areas as well. And that leads to it because you find that there'll be multiple members of different generations living within the same household. So that makes social distancing very difficult, if not impossible. If you look at transport workers as well, I think nearly a quarter of those working in Transport for London, the tube and the bus drivers who continue to work throughout the crisis to keep the capital going. And I'm sure it's the same or very similar elsewhere in the country. These are also from Black and Asian communities. So there are socio-economic factors, but actually when you look at levels of vitamin D suppression in these populations, I wondered whether that was the cause. And that's the advice I'm giving now for members of the Black and Asian community to consider vitamin D supplements.
Okay, tell us about that. I mean, where do you get vitamin D from and why? What do you mean when you talk about vitamin D suppression in BAME communities?
So the reason I mention it is because of clearly there's a higher level of melanin in the skin of Black and Asian people, and that's to protect their skin from the sun and from the harmful effects of UV rays. And in European populations, we've lost melanin, so we can absorb more vitamin D. So it's not really a problem if you come from a very hot and sunny country. Despite the high level of pigment in the skin, you'll still be able to absorb lots of vitamin D. And it's absorbed and made in the skin, and it helps clearly with bone strength, but also it plays a pivotal role in our immunity as well. So we know that there tends to be low levels in Black and Asian people, and that also seems to lend to increased risk of respiratory problems and complications, which is probably the reason why it's playing such a major part, or may be playing such a major part in the current pandemic.
Because obviously the socioeconomic factors presumably wouldn't affect the senior doctors from BAME backgrounds that we've seen who sadly have been killed during this epidemic.
Well, no, that was my point exactly. That's the point that made me go and research why else there may be an issue, basically. So I felt exactly the same, that the same level of exposure would occur regardless of your ethnicity as a doctor or a nurse in the front line. And if you look for whatever other reasons there must be, the vitamin D question really jumps to mind. So very few Black and Asian people take vitamin D supplements in this country. We know that for sure. And we also know from BMJ reports, there was one in 2017, that taking a vitamin D supplement is much more likely to reduce the progression of a serious chest infection into pneumonia. So you can extrapolate. There's been a recent PubMed article which specifically cites the use of vitamin D supplementation in the COVID-19 outbreak as a way of perhaps reducing the susceptibility for BAME people.
Dr. Bayada, thank you very much indeed. So the advice is take vitamin D supplements, particularly if you've come from those communities. This is Sky News coming up.